What's going on, everyone? It's Zinkes, and today we're talking about one of the most important games in FPS history, Counter Strike Source. For some players, Source was the first Counter Strike experience. For others, it was the game that split the community in half. And even today, more than 20 years after its release, people are still arguing about whether Source was better than 1.6. But regardless of where you stand, there's no denying that Counter Strike Source changed the franchise forever. So today we're diving into the complete history of Counter-Strike Source, from its origins and controversial launch, all the way to the lasting impact it had on Counter-Strike as we know it today. Let's get into it. To understand Source first, we first have to go back to where Counter-Strike started, back in 1999. Counter-Strike wasn't a standalone game, it was actually a mod for Half-Life, created by two developers named Min Guzman Lay and Jess Cliff. Sorry, my apologies. The concept was very simple. It was two teams, terrorist versus counter-terrorist. One life per round, no respawns, and unlike most shooters at the time, winning wasn't just about getting kills. The mod exploded in popularity almost immediately. Players loved the tactical gameplay and the high skill ceiling. Soon enough, Valve took notice and officially acquired Counter-Strike. What started as a fan-made mod quickly became one of the biggest competitive games in the world. By the early 2000s, Counter-Strike 1.6 had become the king of PC shooters, but Valve had bigger things in plan. In the early 2000s or so, Valve was developing a brand new game engine. This engine would eventually become known as the Source engine. Compared to the technology used in Counter-Strike 1.6, Source was a massive leap forward. The graphics were better, the lighting was better, physics were more realistic, character models looked dramatically improved, and environments suddenly felt alive. Valve wanted to showcase this new technology. What better way to do it than with one of their most popular games? And that's exactly what they did. On November 1st, 2004, Counter-Strike Source officially launched, and at first glance, it looked like the future of Counter-Strike, but not everyone was excited about it. One of the biggest surprises surrounding Source wasn't the game itself, it was the reaction actually. Today, whenever a new Counter Strike game releases, players expect graphical improvements. But back then, many competitive players hated change, and Source introduced a lot of it. Players coming from 1.6 immediately noticed differences. Movement felt different, hitboxes felt different, weapon behavior felt a little bit different. Even the physics engine created gameplay moments that simply didn't exist before. Suddenly, objects could be pushed around maps, barrels could move, props reacted to gunfire. While casual players thought it was cool, competitive players weren't convinced at all. Many believe Source wasn't a true Counter Strike game. Forums were filled with debates, players argued endlessly over which version was better, some refused to leave 1.6 entirely. Others embraced Source as the next generation of Counter Strike. For years, the community remained divided. And honestly, that division never completely disappeared. Despite the controversy, though, Source continued to grow. A lot of players were attracted to the updated visuals compared to 1.6. The game looked incredible. Maps like Dust 2, Inferno, Nuke, and Office received major visual upgrades. Sorry about that. Character models were more detailed, weapons looked better, animations felt smoother. For many younger players, though, Source was simply easier to get into. Instead of looking like an early 2000s shooter, it felt modern. And because of that, a completely new generation of Counter Strike players joined the franchise. But there was another reason Source became legendary: the community. If you played Counter Strike Source during its prime, you probably remembered community servers. And honestly, they were amazing. Today, most multiplayer games focus heavily on matchmaking, but Source was different. Servers became communities. You recognized familiar names, you made friends, you joined clans, and every server felt unique. Some servers focused on competitive gameplay, others introduced completely custom experiences. This is where Source truly shined, because the game became a playground for creativity. Counter Strike Source wasn't just about defusing bombs, players created entirely new ways to play. Zombie Escape became one of the most popular modes. Instead of fighting another team traditionally, players worked together to escape massive zombie hordes. Surf maps exploded in popularity. Players learned to glide across ramps using advanced movement mechanics. Hours were spent mastering difficult courses. Then there was Jailbreak. Mini games, Death Run, Hide and Seek, Gun Game, and countless other game modes. Some players barely touched competitive Counter Strike. Instead, they spent thousands of hours on community created content. This creativity helped keep Source alive for years on end. In many ways, Source became more than just a shooter. It became a platform. Even though 1.6 remained dominant for a long time, Source eventually developed its own competitive scene. Organizations started fielding Source teams, major tournaments appeared, prize pools grew, and professional players emerged. The game developed a dedicated esports following. While it never completely replaced 1.6 during its lifetime, Source still created some incredible competitive moments. Many future Counter-Strike stars got their start playing Source. The lessons they learned would eventually carry over into the future titles as well. And speaking of future titles, eventually another Counter-Strike game would arrive. One that would once again divide the community. In 2012, Valve released Counter-Strike Global Offensive. At launch, many players disliked it. Sound familiar? History repeated itself. Just like Source before it, players criticized movement, weapon handling, and gameplay changes. Many Source players refused to switch immediately. Some continued playing Source for years. But over time, CS improved. The player base slowly started migrating over. Professional organizations followed, tournament organizers followed, and eventually Global Offensive became the new standard. Still, Source never completely disappeared. Thousands of players continue playing it till this day, and many still log on just to play Source. So, why do people continue playing Counter-Strike Source in 2026? Even in this year, a lot of it comes down to nostalgia. For many players, Source represents their childhood. It's the game they grew up playing after school, the game where they met friends, the game where they learned how Counter-Strike worked. But nostalgia isn't the only reason. Source still has a unique feel. Movement feels different, gunplay feels different, community servers remain active, and some players simply prefer it over newer versions. There's simply something special about joining an old Source server and seeing familiar maps that have been around for decades. It's like stepping into a time capsule, a reminder of a different era of online gaming. When people discuss Counter-Strike history, it's easy to focus on 1.6, CS, or even Counter-Strike 2. But Source deserves a lot more credit than it gets. It introduced millions of players to Counter-Strike, it showcased Valve's new Source engine, it helped create some of the most memorable community experiences in gaming history. And it proved that Counter-Strike could evolve beyond its original form. Without Source, the future of Counter-Strike might have looked very different. Its influence can still be felt today. From custom game modes to community servers to the way Valve approaches updates, pieces of Source still live on throughout the franchise. And that's why Counter-Strike Source remains one of the most important FPS games ever made, not because it was perfect, but because it changed everything. If you enjoyed this look back at Counter-Strike history, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and let me know down in the comments where your first Counter-Strike game was. Was it 1.6, Source, Global Offensive, or Counter-Strike 2? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.